What if your entire future was decided before you could even tie your shoes? What if love, power, and freedom were all just pawns in someone else's grand game? For medieval queens, roughly from the 11th to the 16th century, arranged marriages were the brutal reality, but some women refused to play by the rules. Number 12. Christina of Denmark, the one who said, "Nope." Imagine being a young woman already a widow, and then receiving a marriage proposal from one of the most powerful and feared kings in Europe, a man known for getting rid of wives who displeased him. That was the situation for Christina of Denmark, Duchess of Milan, and later Lorraine. Around the year 1538, her life had already been a whirlwind of political arrangements, a common fate for those born into royalty. She was the daughter of King Christian II of Denmark and Isabella of Austria, a sister to the mighty Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. This meant she was a valuable piece on the European chessboard from the moment she was born. Christina's first marriage was arranged when she was just 13 years old to Francesco II Sforza, the Duke of Milan. This union was supposed to stabilize the complex politics of northern Italy, linking the Holy Roman Empire with the Duchy of Milan. It was a grand affair, but not one she chose. She arrived in Milan, a teenage bride stepping into a world of Italian intrigue and power struggles. Sadly, her husband died just 2 years later, leaving her a childless widow at the tender age of 15. This was a precarious position for any royal woman. She could return to her family, or she could be remarried for new political gains. It was in this moment of vulnerability, yet also newfound freedom, that Henry VIII of England came knocking. Henry, notorious for his multiple marriages and the swift fates of his previous wives, was looking for a new queen. His third wife, Jane Seymour, had recently died after giving birth to his much-desired son, Edward. Henry needed a new queen, not just for an heir, but for a powerful alliance. His eyes turned to Christina, a beautiful young woman with important family connections to the Holy Roman Empire, a crucial ally in his ongoing conflicts with France and the Pope. Henry dispatched his famous court painter Hans Holbein the Younger to paint Christina's portrait. Holbein traveled to Brussels, where Christina was residing with her Aunt Mary of Hungary. The result was a stunning portrait that captured Christina's striking beauty, her composed demeanor, and her piercing gaze. It was a painting meant to charm Henry, and it certainly did. Henry was reportedly very impressed, finding her very beautiful. The stage was set for another grand, politically motivated marriage. But Christina had other plans, or at least a very sharp wit. The prospect of marrying Henry VIII, a man who had famously annulled one marriage and beheaded another wife, was not exactly an appealing one for a young woman who had just tasted the precariousness of power and loss. When the proposal was relayed to her, along with the information about Henry's marital history, Christina's response became legendary. She is reported to have coolly remarked, "If I had 2 heads, one should be at the King of England's disposal." This wasn't just a clever retort, it was a profound act of defiance. In an era where royal women were expected to marry for political expediency, where their bodies and futures were bargaining chips, Christina dared to express a very public and very pointed reluctance. Her words highlighted the extreme danger and unpredictability of being Henry VIII's wife. She was not just saying no, she was brilliantly articulating why she was saying no, subtly implying that the risk was too great, even for a royal woman. Her defiance, delivered with such composure, sent a clear message. She understood the game, but she refused to be a pawn in this particular dangerous game. She wasn't simply a commodity to be traded. She was an intelligent woman who valued her life and her safety. Ultimately, Christina did not marry Henry VIII. Instead, she entered into another arranged marriage, this time to Francis I, Duke of Lorraine. A union that was certainly political, but perhaps less fraught with existential peril than marrying the English king. This second marriage, arranged by her uncle Charles V, also aimed to secure political alliances. She had 2 children with Francis. After his death, she served as regent for her son, becoming a skilled and respected ruler in her own right, demonstrating considerable political acumen and diplomatic talent. She navigated complex international relations, proving herself to be far more than just a beautiful face in a Holbein portrait. Christina's defiance of Henry VIII wasn't just a moment of verbal wit. It was a public declaration of agency in a world that sought to strip royal women of it. She cleverly used her words to protect her future, proving that even within the confines of royal expectations, a queen could find ways to push back against arrangements that threatened her very existence. Her story reminds us that even subtle acts of resistance could have profound impacts in a world where women were rarely given a choice. Number 11. Berengaria of Navarre, the queen who put her foot down. Berengaria of Navarre was a woman who didn't fit the mold even for a queen. Her story is often overshadowed by her famous husband, Richard the Lionheart, King of England, a man known for his warrior prowess and crusading zeal. Yet within her arranged marriage, Berengaria carved out a space of remarkable independence, particularly regarding her finances and her personal beliefs, defying the expectations of a queen who should simply fall in line. Richard, on his way to the Third Crusade, needed an alliance with Navarre to secure his southern French territories. Berengaria, the eldest daughter of King Sancho, the sixth of Navarre, was chosen. The arrangement was made while Richard was already betrothed to Alice, the sister of King Philip II of France. A sticky situation that required papal dispensation. Berengaria sailed to Messina in Sicily, where Richard was preparing his fleet. But even before the wedding bells rang, there were complications. Richard's mother, Eleanor of Aquitaine, another queen on our list, had traveled to fetch Berengaria and bring her to Sicily. The plan was for the marriage to take place swiftly. However, the season of Lent was approaching, and canon law forbade marriage during this solemn period. This delay meant Berengaria had to accompany Richard's sister Joan on a separate ship during the initial voyage. Then a storm hit, scattering the fleet. Berengaria's ship was forced to take refuge in Cyprus, a hostile territory ruled by the tyrannical Isaac Komnenos. This put her in immediate danger. Richard, upon hearing of the peril facing his fiancée and sister, swiftly diverted his forces, conquering Cyprus. In a lightning campaign, this dramatic rescue set the stage for their marriage, which finally took place in Limassol, Cyprus, on May 12, 1191. It was a military wedding far from the grand courtly ceremonies expected of a Queen of England. She was crowned Queen of England on the very day of her wedding, a rare occurrence, despite the political convenience of their union. Richard and Berengaria's relationship was notoriously distant. Richard spent very little time in England during his reign, and even less with his wife. He was a crusader, a warrior, and his heart seemed to lie more with military campaigns and adventurous pursuits than with domestic life. Berengaria, for her part, accompanied him on the crusade initially, an unusual feat for a queen traveling through the Holy Land and enduring the harsh conditions. She was present during the Siege of Acre, providing comfort and support to the troops. A silent but steadfast presence. Their marriage, however, was also complicated by Richard's alleged homosexuality and his lack of interest in producing an heir. This meant that the primary purpose of a royal marriage perpetuating the dynasty was not being fulfilled. Therefore, found herself in an ambiguous position. A queen without the traditional influence that motherhood might bring, and without the close companionship of her husband. It is in her later life, after Richard's death in 1199, that Berengaria's defiance truly shines. Richard had left her a pension in his will, but his successor, his brother King John, notoriously reneged on this agreement. John, always short on funds and treacherous in his dealings, consistently refused to pay Berengaria her dower lands or the income promised to her. This left the Queen Dowager in a difficult financial situation despite her royal status. But Berengaria was no pushover. For the next 2 decades, she relentlessly pursued her rights. She appealed to the Pope, to French kings, and to anyone who would listen, demanding what was rightfully hers. This was a remarkable act of persistence and legal savvy. A woman, a foreigner, and a widow. She took on a powerful monarch and the entire machinery of a royal court to claim her due. She sent envoys, wrote letters, and utilized every diplomatic channel available to her. Her appeals were not just about money. They were about her dignity and her status. She was owed lands and income that were crucial for maintaining her household and her position as a Queen Dowager. Her refusal to back down, her continued insistence on justice, defied the expectation that a royal widow would simply accept her fate, especially when faced with the might of a reigning king. She used the power of the church and international pressure to her advantage. Eventually, after John's death and during the minority of his son, Henry III, Berengaria finally received a settlement, though not always in full. She retired to the Abbey of Les Poux in France, which she founded and supported and lived there until her death in 1230. She was a queen who, despite a distant and unfulfilling arranged marriage, stood firm on her rights, refused to be cheated, and fought for her financial independence, leaving a legacy of quiet but powerful defiance against the norms of her time. Number 10. Blanche of Castile, the regent who ruled like a king. Blanche of Castile was born into royalty, a granddaughter of Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of the most famous queens in history. So, it is perhaps no surprise that Blanche herself would embody a fierce spirit and an incredible will to power. Her marriage was arranged when she was just a child, and while she did not defy the arrangement itself, she profoundly defied the limitations and expectations that came with being a queen consort in such a marriage, becoming a true ruler in her own right. Blanche was the daughter of Alfonso VIII of Castile and Eleanor of England. Her path to the French throne began in 1200, when she was barely 12 years old. Her aunt, Eleanor of Aquitaine, already in her late 70s, traveled personally across the Pyrenees to secure the marriage between Blanche and Louis, the heir to the French throne. This marriage was a crucial part of a peace treaty between England and France, sealing a long-standing territorial dispute. It was a political transaction of the highest order, with little regard for the personal preferences of the young couple. The young Blanche married Louis VIII in Port-Mort, France. She arrived in a foreign land, expected to produce heirs and support her husband's reign. She did exactly that, bearing him 13 children, though many did not survive infancy. She proved to be a capable and intelligent queen, supporting her husband in his political endeavors and offering counsel. Louis VIII reigned for only 3 years, from 1223 to 1226, before his untimely death. This is where Blanche's story truly begins to defy the conventional narrative of a medieval queen. Upon Louis's death, their eldest surviving son, Louis IX, was only 12 years old. This meant a regency council was needed, and Blanche as the Queen Mother was the obvious choice to lead it. However, a woman, especially a foreign woman, ruling France as regent was not an easy prospect. The powerful French barons, ever eager to expand their own power, saw an opportunity to exploit the weakness of a child king and a female regent. Followed was a fierce and relentless struggle for control. The feudal lords, many of them related to the royal family and jealous of the Capetian dynasty's power, formed coalitions and launched open rebellions. They saw Blanche as an outsider and perceived her regency as a chance to usurp royal authority. Leading these rebellions were figures like Peter Mauclair, Duke of Brittany, and Hugh X of Lusignan, a powerful baron with grievances against the crown. The Blanche of Castile was no shrinking violet. She proved to be a military strategist, a cunning diplomat, and an iron-willed leader. She personally led armies into the field, something incredibly rare for a queen, especially a regent. She rallied loyal nobles, negotiated with rebels, and crushed insurrections. In 1227, she led her forces against the rebellious Peter Mauclair, showing decisive leadership. She secured the support of the papacy, using the church's influence to bolster her position against her rebellious vassals. She even outmaneuvered some of the most experienced and cynical politicians of her time. One famous incident highlights her determination. When the young King Louis was separated from his mother during a rebellion, Blanche rode through hostile territory, personally gathering a small force to protect him. She ensured his safety and brought him back to Paris, earning the admiration of the common people who saw her as a fearless protector of the crown. Blanche not only defended the throne, but strengthened it. She ended the Albigensian Crusade in southern France, integrating Languedoc more firmly into the royal domain. She oversaw administrative reforms, promoted justice, and nurtured her son Louis IX, who would go on to become one of France's most revered kings and a saint. Her political acumen and strong leadership ensured a stable transition of power and a strengthened monarchy for her son. When Louis IX came of age in 1234, Blanche did not simply retreat into the background. She continued to serve as her son's closest advisor, maintaining significant influence in the French court. She even served as regent again when Louis left for the Seventh Crusade in 1248, once more proving her indispensable leadership during a time of national crisis. Blanche of Castile's story is a testament to defying expectations within an arranged marriage. While she fulfilled her traditional role as a wife and mother, her true legacy lies in her extraordinary political and military leadership. She took the reins of power in a chaotic and dangerous period, fought off formidable enemies, and secured the future of the French monarchy, proving that a queen consort could be a formidable ruler far exceeding the passive role society often assigned her. She was a regent who ruled with the authority and skill of a king, forging a path for herself and her son that was both exceptional and enduring. Number 9. Margaret I of Denmark, the uncrowned monarch who forged an empire. Margaret I of Denmark, often called the Semiramis of the North, was a queen who transcended the traditional role of a ruler's wife to become one of the most powerful and influential monarchs of the Middle Ages. Her marriage was arranged, as was typical for medieval royalty, but her life story is a stunning testament to defying the limitations leading to her effectively ruling 3 kingdoms. Born in 1353, Margaret was the daughter of King Valdemar IV of Denmark. At the tender age of 10, she was married to Håkon VI of Norway, who was also the King of Sweden. This arranged marriage was a strategic move to unite the Scandinavian kingdoms, a common political goal. At the time, it was a significant union, and Margaret quickly moved to Norway to begin her new life as a queen consort. She bore a son, Olaf, who was the hope for the future of these united crowns. The path to power for Margaret was not a straightforward one. It was paved with political instability and personal tragedy. In 1375, her father, King Valdemar IV of Denmark, died without a male heir. According to the feudal traditions, the throne of Denmark was vacant. Margaret, seizing the moment, successfully campaigned to have her 5-year-old son Olaf elected as King of Denmark. She acted as his regent, effectively taking control of the Danish kingdom, demonstrating her political savvy at an early age. This was a bold move as she bypassed other contenders and asserted her son's, and by extension her own claim. Just 9 years later, in 1380, Margaret's husband, King Håkon VI of Norway, also died. This meant that her son Olaf inherited the throne of Norway, as well becoming King Olaf IV. Margaret continued to serve as regent for both Denmark and Norway, solidifying her grip on power in both kingdoms. She was now the de facto ruler of a vast northern empire, managing 2 independent monarchies through her young son. However, fate dealt her a cruel blow in 1387 when her son, Olaf, died suddenly at the age of 17. With Olaf gone, Margaret was left without a direct male heir to the thrones. This presented a profound crisis. Many might have expected her to step back, to allow male relatives to assume power. But Margaret was not just any queen dowager. She had already proven herself a highly capable ruler, and she had no intention of relinquishing the authority she had meticulously built. Instead, Margaret convinced the Danish magnates to acknowledge her as mighty lady and master, and guardian of the entire realm of Denmark. This was an unprecedented title, granting her sovereign authority without the traditional trappings of a king. She then secured similar recognition in Norway. She was a queen ruling as a monarch without a king beside her. This was a direct defiance of the patriarchal norms that dictated male succession and rule. She did not seek a new husband to rule through. She ruled directly. Her ambition did not stop there. Sweden was embroiled in its own political turmoil, with nobles unhappy under the rule of King Albert of Sweden. In 1388, the Swedish nobility appealed to Margaret for help, recognizing her strength and influence. Margaret, ever the opportunist, intervened. She launched a military campaign, and in 1389 her forces decisively defeated King Albert at the Battle of Ask. Albert was captured, and Margaret was recognized as the ruler of Sweden, becoming the de facto sovereign of all three Scandinavian kingdoms. To secure the long-term future of this vast union, Margaret skillfully orchestrated the Kalmar Union in 1397. She adopted her great-nephew Eric of Pomerania and had him crowned king of the three realms. However, Margaret ensured that she retained significant power, serving as the real ruler behind the scenes until her death in 1412. She was known for her firm hand, her shrewd diplomacy, and her ability to maintain peace and stability across the Union for decades. She implemented reforms, strengthened the monarchy, and ensured her vision for a united Scandinavia endured for over a century. Margaret I of Denmark defied the expectations of her arranged marriage, her widowhood, and the gender norms of her time to become an unparalleled force in Northern European politics. She did not passively accept her fate as a queen consort. She actively shaped it, ascending from a young bride to the sovereign ruler of a tripartite kingdom. She was a true empire builder, an uncrowned monarch whose sheer will and political genius forged one of the most significant political entities of the medieval period. Number 8. Maria of Molina, the queen who fought for her family's legitimacy. Maria of Molina was a queen who faced extraordinary challenges to her marriage and her children's right to the throne, and she fought with fierce determination to overcome them. Her story is one of battling against social stigma, legal challenges, and the treacherous politics of a medieval court, all to secure the legitimacy of her family. Born around 1265, Maria was the daughter of Alfonso of Molina and Mayor Guillén de Guzman. Her lineage was noble but not royal, in the same direct line as her future husband. Her arranged marriage was to Sancho IV of Castile, her first cousin once removed, a union that would prove to be a source of constant controversy. Sancho was the son of Alfonso X, King of Castile and Leon. The marriage took place in 1282, primarily for political reasons. Sancho, at the time, was rebelling against his father, King Alfonso X. He needed strong allies, and a marriage to Maria, who had connections to powerful noble families, helped consolidate support for his cause. However, their close blood relationship meant that their marriage required a special dispensation from the Pope to be considered legitimate under canon law. Without this, their children would be considered illegitimate and their claim to the throne invalid. While Sancho managed to obtain some papal bulls supporting the marriage, the full dispensation was never formally or widely recognized, especially not during the lifetime of Alfonso X, who resented Sancho's rebellion. When Sancho succeeded his father as King of Castile and Leon in 1284, the issue of his marriage to Maria in the hands of his enemies. Powerful nobles and even some members of the royal family questioned the legitimacy of the union, and by extension the legitimacy of their children. This put Maria in an incredibly precarious position. Her status as queen and the future of her children hung by a thread. Maria, however, was not one to back down. She was intelligent, resourceful, and deeply devoted to her children. She knew that her family's survival depended on securing undeniable legitimacy for her marriage. She faced constant pressure and intrigue with various factions within the Castilian nobility trying to undermine her position and promote alternative claimants to the throne. These rivals would often cite the problematic nature of her marriage as their primary argument. During Sancho IV's reign, Maria acted as a crucial political advisor and a steadying force. She supported her husband through numerous internal conflicts and external wars, helping him to consolidate his power. She proved herself to be a shrewd diplomat and a capable administrator, earning the respect of many. Even those who questioned her marriage, the real test of her defiance came after Sancho IV's death in 1295. Their eldest son, Ferdinand IV, was only 9 years old. This meant a regency was needed, and Maria, as the Queen Mother, became the de facto ruler of Castile. Her regency was immediately challenged by various pretenders to the throne, including the children of Sancho's elder brother, and even her late husband's uncle, all of whom revived the arguments about her marriage's legitimacy. Maria's regency was a period of intense political struggle, civil war, and foreign invasions. She had to navigate treacherous alliances, deal with greedy nobles, and protect her young son from assassination attempts. She was a master of diplomacy, skillfully playing different factions against each other, securing the loyalty of some nobles, and using shrewd negotiations to neutralize others. She even appealed directly to the Pope on multiple occasions, tirelessly working to obtain an explicit papal bull that would unequivocally legitimize her marriage and her children. Her tenacity paid off. In 1301, after years of relentless effort and lobbying, Pope Boniface VIII finally issued the bull legitimizing Maria and Sancho's marriage, clearing the way for Ferdinand IV's undisputed claim to the throne. This was a monumental victory for Maria, the culmination of her unwavering determination. It definitively silenced the legal arguments against her family and secured the future of the Castilian monarchy under her son. Even after Ferdinand IV came of age, Maria continued to be a crucial political figure, serving as a trusted advisor and, at times, as regent again for her grandson, Alfonso XI. She was known for her wisdom, her piety, and her unwavering loyalty to her family and the crown. Maria of Molina's story is not about defying an arranged marriage in the sense of rejecting it, but about defying the consequences and inherent fragility of a problematic one. She fought relentlessly against the societal and legal challenges to her union, securing legitimacy for her children and ensuring the stability of a kingdom. She demonstrated that a queen, through sheer will and political skill, could overcome immense obstacles to protect her family's future, even when the foundations of her own marriage were constantly under attack. Number 7. Adelaide of Susa, the Marchioness who held onto her power. Adelaide of Susa, born around 1014 or 1020, was a powerful and independent ruler in a time when women were generally expected to be subordinate to men, especially their husbands. Her life was a series of politically arranged marriages. But what makes her stand out is how she consistently defied the expectation that these unions would diminish her power or her control over her vast territories. Instead, she used her marriages to consolidate and expand her influence, becoming one of the most formidable figures in medieval Italy. Adelaide was the daughter of Ulrich Manfred, the second Margrave of Turin. Upon her father's death in 1034, she inherited an immense territory, the March of Turin, which encompassed a significant portion of what is now Piedmont in northwestern Italy. This inheritance made her one of the most sought-after heiresses in Europe. For a woman to inherit such a large and strategically important territory was unusual, but for her to hold on to it with such tenacity was truly remarkable. Her first marriage was arranged to Hermann IV, Duke of Swabia, in 1036. This alliance was forged to secure the Holy Roman Emperor, Conrad II's control over Italy, and to manage the powerful March of Turin. However, Hermann died unexpectedly just 3 years later, leaving Adelaide a young widow but still in control of her march. Her second marriage, arranged shortly after Herman's death, was to Henry the Marquis of Montferrat. This was another strategic alliance, but Henry also died young, leaving Adelaide a widow for the second time around 1045. Each time, despite the loss of her husband, Adelaide managed to retain her authority over her territories. She was not a passive recipient of her fate. She actively asserted her rights and her control. Her third and most significant marriage was in 1046 to Otto of Savoy, the son of Humbert I, the founder of the House of Savoy. This marriage was hugely important because it united the powerful March of Turin with the rising House of Savoy, effectively creating a powerful domain that controlled the crucial Alpine passes between Italy and France. This union would lay the foundation for the future Kingdom of Sardinia and later the Kingdom of Italy. Even though this marriage was politically arranged, Adelaide ensured that she remained the dominant partner in terms of land and influence. She was described as the effective ruler, making decisions, holding court, and commanding respect. While Otto was her husband, it was Adelaide who held the real power and commanded the loyalty of the nobles and the people in her march. She effectively defied the patriarchal norm that a wife's power should diminish upon marriage, especially when her husband came from a powerful family. Adelaide was not just a nominal ruler, she was an active and engaged leader. She issued charters, oversaw legal proceedings, and mediated disputes. Her authority was so profound that during the investiture controversy, a major struggle between the Holy Roman Emperor Henry IV and the Pope Adelaide played a crucial role. When Henry IV needed to cross the Alps to meet Pope Gregory VII at Canossa in 1077, he had to secure safe passage through Adelaide's lands. She leveraged a strategic position to her advantage, demanding significant concessions and even a territorial grant in exchange for safe passage. This act alone speaks volumes about her political power and her ability to assert her will against one of the most powerful men in Europe. She used her position to extract benefits for herself and her dynasty. Rather than simply obeying the demands of the emperor, Adelaide outlived her third husband, Otto of Savoy, who died in 1060. She then acted as regent for her young sons, Peter I and Amadeus II. Her regency was strong and effective, ensuring the stability and continued growth of her territories. She continued to rule with an iron will until her death in 1091, a remarkably long and apolitical reign for a woman in the 11th century. Adelaide of Susa's life demonstrates a powerful form of defiance. While she entered into multiple politically arranged marriages, she never allowed these unions to diminish her personal authority or her control over her inherited lands. She consistently maintained her status as a sovereign ruler, even over her husbands. She used her advantageous position, her shrewd political instincts, and her sheer determination to navigate a turbulent era, ensuring that her power remained intact and that her legacy as a powerful independent marchioness was etched into history. She was a woman who didn't just accept her fate. She shaped it, bending the rules of a male-dominated world to her own will. Number 6. Anne of Brittany, the Duchess, who married kings for her duchy. Anne of Brittany was a queen who understood the power of marriage as a political tool, and she used it with fierce determination to defy the fate of her beloved duchy. Her life was a constant struggle to maintain the independence of Brittany in the face of an ever-expanding French kingdom. She was married twice to French kings, both times in politically arranged unions, but she consistently used these marriages to her advantage, asserting Breton autonomy with every fiber of her being. Born in 1477, Anne was the heiress to the Duchy of Brittany, a wealthy and strategically important territory on the northwestern coast of France. Brittany had long maintained a complex relationship with France, often independent, sometimes allied, but always guarding its distinct identity. Anne's father, Francis II, Duke of Brittany, died in 1488, leaving her at age 11 as the ruling duchess. This made her the most desirable bride in Europe, for whoever married Anne would control Brittany. The French monarchy, under King Charles VIII, saw an opportunity to finally absorb Brittany into the French crown. This was a direct threat to Britain. Independence, and Anne was determined to prevent it. She had already been promised in marriage multiple times, including to the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I, a powerful alliance designed to counter French ambitions. In 1490, she married Maximilian by proxy, meaning someone stood in for him at the ceremony. This was a bold move, publicly defying French claims over her. However, Charles VIII of France was not to be deterred. He saw the proxy marriage as a direct insult and a strategic threat. He invaded Brittany. Anne, a young woman, was besieged in her capital of Rennes. She bravely held out, but eventually, with her duchy under siege and no immediate help from Maximilian, she was forced to surrender. Charles VIII then essentially forced her to marry him in 1491, effectively annulling her marriage to Maximilian without papal consent. This was a humiliating defeat for Anne, and a clear attempt by France to absorb Brittany. But Anne was a fighter. Even within this forced, politically arranged marriage, she negotiated fiercely. The marriage contract stipulated that if Charles VIII died without a male heir, Anne would marry his successor, ensuring Brittany remained tied to France. However, it also contained provisions to protect Breton rights and laws, and crucially, it stated that Brittany would remain a separate entity, not fully integrated into France. This was a significant victory for Anne, a testament to her determination to preserve her duchy's identity. She defied the intent of the marriage to completely subjugate Brittany. Charles VIII died in 1498 without surviving male heirs. True to the marriage contract, Anne was then pressured to marry his cousin and successor, Louis XII. This meant marrying her former brother-in-law, another politically expedient union, but Anne once again played her cards with skill. She imposed her own conditions for the marriage. She insisted that Louis XII officially recognize her rights as Duchess of Brittany rather than merely his wife. She ensured that her own ducal title and authority were respected. She fought tooth and nail for the special status of Brittany within the French realm. During her 2 marriages to French kings, Anne of Brittany fiercely championed Breton culture and language. She commissioned Breton histories, used the Breton language in her court, and ensured that Breton institutions and laws were upheld. She spent significant time in her duchy, overseeing its administration and fostering a sense of national pride. She effectively used her position as Queen of France to become an even stronger advocate for Brittany. Challenging the traditional passive role of a queen consort, she defied the French objective of total assimilation and bore many children to both kings, but tragically, most died young. Only her 2 daughters, with Louis XII, Claude and Renée, survived. Anne's greatest triumph, in her defiance, was ensuring that her daughter Claude, and not a male heir from France, would inherit Brittany. She married Claude to Francis, Duke of Angoulême, who would later become King Francis, the first of France. However, the marriage contract stipulated that Brittany would eventually be united with the French crown through Claude and her descendants. But Anne fought fiercely for her own rights to the duchy and her ability to transmit it through her daughter. Anne of Brittany died in 1514, having spent her entire life walking a tightrope between being Queen of France and Duchess of Brittany. Her legacy is one of unwavering dedication to her homeland. She used her politically arranged marriages not as a surrender, but as a platform to negotiate, advocate, and ultimately secure as much autonomy as possible for Brittany. She defied the narrative of inevitable absorption, leveraging her royal position to champion her ducal heritage and ensuring that her beloved Brittany maintained its unique identity for as long as possible. Number 5. Matilda of Tuscany, the Countess who ruled alone. Matilda of Tuscany, born around 1046, was a woman of extraordinary power and influence. In 11th century Italy, she was not just a countess. She was a formidable military commander, a shrewd diplomat, and a staunch supporter of the papacy in its epic struggle against the Holy Roman Emperor. While she entered into 2 politically arranged marriages, She famously defied the expectations of marital submission and even separated from her second husband, maintaining her independent rule over her vast territories. Matilda was the daughter of Boniface III, Margrave of Tuscany and Beatrice of Lorraine. Her family controlled immense lands in northern Italy, including Tuscany-Ferrara and other strategically vital territories. Upon her father's death in 1052, Matilda inherited a vast patrimony, but as a young girl, her mother, Beatrice, and stepfather, Godfrey the Bearded, ruled as regents. Matilda received an excellent education, learning Latin, German, and possibly Greek, and was instructed in military arts and horsemanship. Her first marriage, arranged by her family, was to Godfrey, the hunchback, the son of her stepfather, Godfrey the Bearded. This union was intended to consolidate power and ensure the continued stability of the family's domains. It was a typical political alliance designed to secure alliances and prevent fragmentation of powerful lands. However, this marriage was not a happy one, and Matilda and Godfrey lived mostly apart. Godfrey the Hunchback was known for his bad temper and his strong loyalty to the Holy Roman Emperor, Henry IV, while Matilda was a staunch supporter of the papacy. Their political loyalties clashed per a significant act of defiance. In medieval society, a wife leaving her husband, especially one of such high status, was rare and considered scandalous. It was a clear rejection of the marital bond. Driven by deep personal and political differences, Matilda chose to live independently, asserting her own will and prioritizing her political and religious convictions over the duties of a medieval wife. She returned to her Italian territories, where she wielded undisputed power. After Godfrey the Hunchback's death in 1076, Matilda became the undisputed ruler of her vast domains. She was known as a fervent supporter of Pope Gregory VII during the investiture controversy, the epic struggle between the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor, Henry IV, over who had the right to appoint bishops. Matilda used her military power, her diplomatic skill, and her personal wealth to support the papacy, offering refuge to the Pope and providing crucial resources for his cause. It was in her castle at Canossa that Henry IV famously humbled himself before Pope Gregory VII in 1077, an event of immense historical significance, demonstrating Matilda's pivotal role. In 1089, in another politically arranged marriage, Matilda married Welf V, the son of the Duke of Bavaria. This union was much younger than her, around 17 years old, while she was in her early 40s. The marriage was orchestrated by Pope Urban II to create a powerful alliance against the Emperor Henry IV, linking Matilda's Italian territories with the powerful Welf dynasty. However, this marriage also proved to be short-lived and crucially childless. Matilda separated from Welf V around 1095, again asserting her independence. The reasons for this second separation are debated, but it is clear that Matilda prioritized her own rule and her strategic alliances over the conventional duties of a wife. She refused to allow a husband to undermine her authority or control over her lands. The lack of an heir from either marriage meant that her vast personal wealth and lands would pass to the church. Upon her death, a decision that also defied traditional expectations. Matilda of Tuscany reigned independently for decades, commanding armies, administering justice, and engaging in high-stakes diplomacy. She built a powerful network of allies and established a reputation as a fierce and unyielding ruler. She was a rarity in her time, a woman who controlled her own destiny and a significant part of Italy without a dominant male figure to rule through. She sponsored intellectual life, founded churches, and supported monastic communities. Matilda's life was a masterclass in defying the constraints of arranged marriages and gender expectations. She chose to prioritize her political and spiritual allegiances, her autonomy, and her direct rule over her personal relationships. She proved that a woman, even without a conventional marriage or male heir, could be a pivotal force in medieval Europe, shaping the course of empires and defining an era. She was a countess who truly ruled alone, a testament to her strength and will. Number 4. Joanna I of Naples, the queen who chose her own path. Joanna I of Naples, born in 1326, lived a life of dramatic intrigue, political upheaval, and personal choice that consistently defied the norms of arranged marriages and the limitations placed upon medieval queens. She reigned as Queen of Naples and Countess of Provence for over 30 years, a period marked by shifting alliances, accusations of murder, and no less than 4 marriages, many of which she navigated with remarkable agency. Joanna was the daughter of Charles, Duke of Calabria, and Maria Valois. Her grandfather, Robert the Wise, King of Naples, had no surviving sons, so Joanna became his designated heir. This made her an incredibly valuable bride, a prize to be secured through marriage. Her first marriage was arranged by her grandfather in 1334, when she was just 8 years old. She was betrothed to her cousin Andrew of Hungary, the younger brother of Louis I of Hungary. This union was intended to merge the Neapolitan and Hungarian branches of the Anjou dynasty, but it was fraught with tension from the start. King Robert died in 1343, leaving Joanna, a young queen, and her husband Andrew, who demanded full co-rulership. Andrew was unpopular with the Neapolitan nobility and had ambitions to rule alone, sidelining Joanna. The marriage quickly soured. In 1345, a horrifying event unfolded. Andrew was found murdered, hanging from a balcony in Avarsa, a royal palace. The assassination was a massive scandal, and Joanna herself was widely suspected of involvement along with her cousin and possible lover, Louis of Taranto. This accusation would follow her for years, defining much of her controversial reign. Whether guilty or innocent, Andrew's death gave Joanna an unexpected and brutal kind of freedom. No longer bound by an arranged marriage to a domineering husband, she was now a sovereign queen. She quickly, and some might say controversially, married Louis of Taranto in 1347. This was a marriage driven by personal affection, political alliance, and the immediate need for a protector and co-ruler in a volatile kingdom. It was a choice unlike her first union, and it marked a significant act of self-determination in a world where royal women rarely got to choose their partners. This choice, however, enraged Louis I of Hungary, who invaded Naples, seeking vengeance for his brother's death. Joanna and Louis were forced to flee to Provence. Even in exile, Joanna defended her legitimacy. She traveled to Avignon and presented her case to Pope Clement VI, effectively clearing her name of direct involvement in Andrew's murder. The Pope, seeing her as a valuable ally, supported her and eventually recognized her marriage to Louis of Taranto. Joanna then, through shrewd diplomacy and military action, managed to reclaim her kingdom. After Louis of Taranto's death in 1362, Joanna found herself a widow once more. She was now 36 and still in control of her kingdom. Rather than waiting for a powerful European ruler to arrange her next marriage, she once again made her own choices, guided by political necessity and personal preference. Her third marriage in 1363 was to James IV of Majorca, a man whose claim to the throne of Majorca she intended to support. This was a marriage of alliance, but one she initiated and pursued. Her fourth marriage in 1376 was to Otto of Brunswick. This marriage was also strategic, aimed at securing an ally against her increasingly hostile Hungarian relatives and the encroaching power of the papacy. Despite the political context, Joanna chose a husband she believed would be loyal and helpful to her, rather than a powerful monarch who might overshadow her. She consistently sought partners who would support her rule, not usurp it. Joanna's reign was tumultuous. She faced multiple invasions, rebellions, and the Western Schism which divided the Catholic Church. She eventually sided with the Avignon Pope, which alienated the Roman Pope, Urban VI. Urban, in retaliation, declared Joanna a heretic and excommunicated her, recognizing her adopted heir, Charles of Durazzo, as the rightful king of Naples. This led to a final invasion by Charles, who captured Joanna and in 1382 had her assassinated, likely by suffocation with a silken pillow. Joanna I of Naples' life was a testament to defiant agency. From the alleged role in her first husband's murder, which dramatically freed her from an unwanted arranged marriage, to her subsequent deliberate choices of partners, she constantly asserted her will in a world that expected submission. She used marriage as a tool for survival and power, but always on her own terms, charting a unique and often scandalous path for a medieval queen. She refused to be a passive pawn in the grand games of power and succession. Number 3. Isabella I of Castile, the queen who chose love and a crown. Isabella I of Castile, born in 1451, is perhaps the most iconic example of a medieval queen who explicitly defied an arranged marriage. Her refusal to accept a match chosen for her and her bold decision to secretly marry the man she desired not only altered her personal destiny, but irrevocably changed the course of Spanish history. It was a high-stakes gamble that led to a united Spain, the financing of Christopher Columbus's voyage, and the dawn of a new era. Isabella was the daughter of John II of Castile and Isabella of Portugal. From a young age, her future was a pawn in the political games of the Castilian court. Her half-brother, King Henry IV, struggled to secure his own position and the succession. Henry had a daughter, Joanna, whose legitimacy was widely questioned, leading to civil unrest and the rise of factions supporting Isabella and her younger brother, Alfonso. As a valuable royal princess, Isabella was constantly dangled as a marriage prospect to various European princes, each union intended to secure Henry's position or a specific political alliance. She was proposed to by King Alfonso V of Portugal, a man much older than her, and even by the aging King Louis XI of France for his son. Each proposed marriage was designed to tie her to Henry's will, ensuring she would not be a threat to his precarious reign. However, Isabella had her own ideas. She was intelligent, pious, and fiercely independent. She recognized the fragility of her own position and the need for a strong, reliable ally if she were ever to secure her claim to the throne which many Castilian nobles supported over Henry's daughter. Her gaze fell upon Ferdinand, the young heir to the neighboring kingdom of Aragon. Ferdinand was her second cousin, and importantly, he was a strong, capable prince from a powerful kingdom. This was a strategic choice, but it also appears to have been one rooted in genuine mutual respect and affection. Problem was that King Henry IV explicitly forbade this marriage. He wanted Isabella to marry someone else, someone he could control to ensure she would not pose a threat to his chosen succession, but Isabella was determined. She defied her brother's commands, making a secret agreement with Ferdinand. Two orchestrated a clandestine meeting, each traveling with a small retinue under the guise of other business. Ferdinand famously even disguised himself as a merchant to avoid detection while crossing Castilian territory. In a dramatic act of defiance against her brother's will and the established norms of royal arranged marriages, Isabella and Ferdinand were secretly married on October 19, 1469, in a Palacio de los Viveros in Valladolid. For this marriage to be legitimate, they needed a papal dispensation due to their consanguinity, being second cousins. They produced a forged papal bull, claiming it had been granted by Pope Pius II, a risky move that could have jeopardized everything. King Henry IV was furious. He declared the marriage null and void and publicly recognized his daughter Joanna as his sole heir. This act of defiance by Isabella and Ferdinand plunged Castile into a period of political turmoil and eventually civil war. Isabella, however, proved herself to be a formidable leader. She actively campaigned for her rights, raising armies, negotiating with nobles, and rallying support for her cause. She was not content to be a passive princess. She was a queen in the making, fighting for her crown, upon Henry IV's death in 1474, the War of the Castilian Succession erupted, with Isabella and Ferdinand battling against the forces supporting Joanna and her husband King Alfonso V of Portugal. Isabella played a central role in this conflict, demonstrating military acumen and inspiring loyalty. Her strength and resolve, coupled with Ferdinand's military prowess, ultimately led to their victory. By 1479, the Treaty of Alcacolvas officially recognized Isabella as Queen of Castile. Their marriage, forged in defiance and war, led to the personal union of the crowns of Castile and Aragon, laying the groundwork for modern Spain. Isabella and Ferdinand became known as the Catholic monarchs, jointly ruling their kingdoms, enacting significant reforms, and famously sponsoring Christopher Columbus's voyages of discovery. Isabella. The first story is a powerful testament to defying an arranged marriage. She didn't just passively resist, she actively chose her own spouse, went against the express wishes of her reigning monarch, and was prepared to fight a civil war to secure her vision. Her determination not only secured her personal happiness, but also reshaped the geographic map of Europe, proving that a medieval queen, through sheer will and cunning, could indeed choose her own path to power and love. Number 2, Eleanor of Aquitaine, the queen who chose her own destiny. Eleanor of Aquitaine, born around 1122, is arguably the most famous and influential medieval queen, a true legend whose life story is a masterclass in defiance. She inherited one of the largest and wealthiest territories in France, was Queen of France, then Queen of England, and mother to 2 English kings. Her most profound act of defiance was not merely her tumultuous life, but her bold decision to seek an annulment from her first arranged marriage, and then, crucially, to choose her second husband, shaping not only her own destiny, but the political landscape of Europe for centuries. Eleanor was the eldest daughter and heiress of William X, Duke of Aquitaine and Count of Poitou. Her inheritance was enormous, extending from the Loire Valley to the Pyrenees. At the age of 15, upon her father's sudden death, she became the most sought-after heiress in Europe. Her guardian, King Louis VI of France, quickly arranged her marriage to his son and heir, Louis VII. This was a strategic coup for the French crown, doubling its territory overnight. Eleanor became Duchess of Aquitaine in her own right, and soon after Queen of France. Her first marriage to Louis VII was, by all accounts, a tumultuous affair. Louis was pious, ascetic, and often indecisive, while Eleanor was vibrant, headstrong, and accustomed to the more liberal and cultured court of Aquitaine. Their personalities clashed dramatically. They traveled together on the Second Crusade, where Eleanor's active participation and perceived worldliness further strained their relationship. She led her own contingent, demanded to ride horseback like a man, and was openly critical of Louis's military decisions. The marriage, despite lasting 15 years, produced only 2 daughters, Marie and Alex. For a royal couple, the lack of a male heir was a critical problem, threatening the stability of the French succession. This provided a convenient, though perhaps not the sole reason for an annulment. Eleanor, astute and resourceful, actively sought the dissolution of her marriage. In 1152, after much negotiation and debate, the marriage was annulled on grounds of consanguinity. They were distantly related, a common legal loophole used for political ends. This act of annulment was a profound defiance. For a queen to actively seek to end her marriage, especially one so politically significant, was extremely rare, and often considered scandalous. But Eleanor did not merely accept her fate. She leveraged the legal and religious system to gain her freedom. What she did next was even more defiant. As a newly single, immensely wealthy and powerful woman, she immediately became the target of countless suitors eager to claim her lands. Many powerful nobles attempted to abduct her or force marriage upon her as she traveled back to Aquitaine. But Eleanor had her own plans. She famously sent proposals to 2 powerful young men, Theobald V, Count of Blois and Henry Plantagenet, Duke of Normandy and Count of Anjou. She chose Henry Plantagenet, a dynamic, ambitious, and much younger man, known for his energy and ruthlessness. Just 8 weeks after her annulment from the King of France, Eleanor married Henry in a private ceremony. This marriage was an act of pure defiance against the traditional expectations placed upon a woman of her status. She chose her own partner, and crucially she chose a partner who was a direct rival to her former husband, the King of France. This immediately shifted the balance of power in Europe. Henry, now Duke of Normandy, Count of Anjou, and through Eleanor, Duke of Aquitaine, controlled a vast swathe of land in France, even more than the King of France himself. When Henry became King Henry II of England in 1154, Eleanor became Queen of England, bringing her vast French territories with her, creating the enormous Angevin Empire. Her marriage to Henry II, though chosen, was not without its own dramatic challenges. They had 8 children, including the future kings, Richard the Lionheart and John. However, their relationship eventually soured, marked by power struggles and Henry's infidelity. Eleanor, ever the independent spirit, famously supported her sons in their rebellions against their father. For this, Henry had her imprisoned for 16 years. Yet even from captivity, she remained a symbol of power and royal authority, influencing events and patiently awaiting her release. Upon Henry II's death in 1189, her favorite son, Richard the Lionheart, immediately released her and restored her to her full power. In her late 60s, she acted as regent for Richard, traveling throughout England to ensure stability before he departed for the Third Crusade. She continued to play a pivotal role in her son John's reign as well, demonstrating her enduring political acumen until her death in 1204 at the remarkable age of 82. Eleanor of Aquitaine defied the very notion that a queen's life was entirely dictated by male guardians and arranged marriages. She initiated her own divorce, and then, against all conventional wisdom and expectation, she chose her next husband, a political rival to her former spouse. This radical choice not only changed her life, but fundamentally reshaped the political map of medieval Europe, making her a formidable force who actively carved out her own destiny. Number 1. Melisende of Jerusalem, the queen who ruled in her own right. Melisende of Jerusalem, born in 1105, was a crusader queen whose life was a testament to defying patriarchal norms within an arranged marriage. While her marriage was indeed arranged, her unwavering insistence on her own right to rule, even against her husband, marked her as a truly exceptional and defiant monarch. She fought to be recognized, not just as a queen consort, but as a sovereign ruler, a concept revolutionary for her time and place. Melisende was the eldest daughter of Baldwin, the second king of Jerusalem, and Morphia of Melitene. Her father, having no surviving sons, intended for her to inherit the throne of the Latin kingdom of Jerusalem, a crusader state carved out of the Levant. This was a crucial decision, as female succession was rare and often challenged in European monarchies, let alone in a kingdom constantly under threat and needing strong leadership to secure her succession. Baldwin II arranged Melisende's marriage in 1129 to Fulk, the 5th Count of Anjou, a powerful and experienced military leader. The terms of the marriage contract were critical. Fulk was to rule as king, but jointly with Melisende. This meant Melisende was not merely a queen consort. She was to be a co-ruler with equal authority. This was a groundbreaking arrangement, reflecting Baldwin II's determination to ensure his daughter's rights and the stability of the kingdom. Upon Baldwin II's death in 1131, Melisende and Fulk were crowned joint monarchs. However, Fulk soon began to try to sideline Melisende, asserting his authority and excluding her from governance. He appointed his own loyalists to key positions and attempted to reduce Melisende to the role of a queen consort, effectively defying the very terms of their arranged marriage and her inherited rights. This attempt to usurp her authority sparked a major crisis in the kingdom, but Melisende was no passive monarch. She was a strong-willed, intelligent, and politically astute queen who had been groomed for rule. She refused to accept her husband's attempts to diminish her power. She rallied her supporters, including key nobles like Hugh II of Le Puise, her cousin, who was famously close to her. The kingdom became divided with factions, supporting either Melisende or Fulk. Conflict escalated into an open revolt, a remarkable situation where a queen actively fought against her husband to assert her rightful place on the throne. Melisende's supporters pressed her case, arguing that Fulk was violating the terms of their succession. Faced with widespread unrest and the staunch support for his wife among the nobility, Fulk was eventually forced to concede. In 1134, a public reconciliation took place, and Fulk recognized Melisende's right to rule as co-sovereign. From that point on, royal charters and decrees were issued in both their names, clearly indicating their joint rule. This was a profound victory for Melisende, a testament to her determination to defy the traditional subservience expected of a royal wife and to assert her inherent right to power. She had won her fight to be an equal. After Fulk's death, in a hunting accident in 1143, Melisende became the sole ruler of Jerusalem. Her eldest son, Baldwin III, was still young, and she served as regent for him. However, even after Baldwin III came of age in 1152, he attempted to assert his sole authority and sideline his mother, much like his father had done. This led to another dramatic power struggle between mother and son. Baldwin III initiated a process to divide the kingdom, demanding that Melisende relinquish her control over parts of the realm. Melisende once again refused to yield her authority completely. This disagreement escalated into a brief civil war, with Melisende holding the city of Jerusalem and Baldwin holding Acre. Once again, Melisende demonstrated her military and political resolve, actively defending her claim. The conflict was eventually resolved, with Baldwin III gaining control of some territories, but Melisende retained her authority over the strategically vital city of Nablus and its surrounding region, along with significant influence in the court. She continued to be a crucial political force, even as her son reigned. Melisende's reign was marked by significant political activity and cultural patronage. She was a major figure in the Second Crusade, welcoming foreign rulers and strategizing with them. She commissioned important artistic works, including the Melisende Psalter, a stunning illuminated manuscript. She managed a kingdom's finances, appointed officials, and issued laws. Melisende of Jerusalem is a powerful example of a queen who defied the expectations of her arranged marriage and the gender norms of her era. She fought, not to escape her marriage, but to ensure that its original defiant terms were honored, that she was a ruler in her own right, not merely a consort. She consistently asserted her authority, even against her husband and her son, securing her place as one of the most effective and independent monarchs of the Crusader states. Her story is a testament to unwavering will and the fierce determination to rule